Are they dangerous, peptides?
I haven't seen any data or information that suggests that there is a danger to peptides. However, to think that we're going to consume or inject peptides and that there's zero side effect is just not a logical conclusion.
What are peptides and are they safe?
That's a really great question. And
I thought it was a pretty good question.
Yeah, I mean, like, wow, like hitting right to the meat of the substance here.
I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah, that was good. So the answer to that, in short, is mostly, right? Yes, they appear to be safe. And why would I think or assume that they would be safe is because they're really built on amino acid structure or the amino acid backbone. An amino acid, most people are familiar with taking amino acids in the weight room and in any sort of energy drink or pre-workout drink, or even recovery, right? Especially for recovery, they do a lot of amino acids. In the weightlifting arena, it was branched chain amino acids were a super hot thing for a while. Okay. Now we're hearing about peptides a lot. Peptides are really just combinations of amino acids that are put together in specific arrangements in order to give specified instructions to the body. So
you're Dr. Ron Dummar, Community Health and Wellness, Heber City, Utah. I'm Nick. We have a podcast. It's called the Be Well Now podcast. So welcome to that. I have no idea what you just said. Again, I'm wondering, should I take peptides, like Joe Rogan says, to help me recover after working out? And the question is, because you've told me that you're on the fence still, that you don't take them. And that's why I'm like, I want to know what you think and why you're not taking them, and if I could take them or should take them.
Yeah, well, again, peptides are amino acids. They're amino acids in their skeleton form, right? So amino acids ultimately are things that we take on a general basis. People are consuming amino acids when they consume food product. It's the basic building block of a lot of living things, okay? So meat, when you consume meat, if you consume even vegetables, foods, your body will break it down into amino acid parts. It's like the building blocks for protein. That's what amino acid is. So your body will take those amino acids after your stomach has broken the food product down into amino acids. Your body will take it and make it into other proteins with specific instructions that might be like tissue repair. It might be skin, right? Any other type of repair. It could be an injury, organ tissue. It could be ligamentous tissue, right? And so the body will make those specific proteins based on what its needs are. Well, now we have the capacity to be able to maybe skip a step. That's what the peptides are doing. Instead of saying, okay, we're going to give the body amino acids and let it build what it needs to build from its own factory, we're going to build those peptides ourselves, or those instruction molecules. We're going to build them ourselves. So we have a series of instruction molecules, paired amino acids, that can give the body instructions to say somebody has a torn ligament. You can inject peptides there that have specific instructions to repair ligament. Boom, and it speeds the healing process.
Are those the most common ones that people are talking about? Because I know there's all kinds of different peptides, like semaglutide, right?
Yep.
Ozempic is
a peptide. Absolutely.
Insulin's a peptide. I know nothing about this stuff. I did a little research before, but I know this is something you know a lot about. But what is the hot peptide that everyone, because there's like a human growth hormone peptide.
It's BPC 157 is really the big one that a lot of people are talking about. And it's used specifically for muscle recovery, for tissue recovery. So after a workout. So, you would use it in the form of, or in the same way that we would have used branched chain amino acids in the past. So after a hard workout, you would take branched chain amino acids to make sure that the body had amino acids, a full supply of amino acids, so that it could readily turn that into usable protein with specific instructions to repair and heal. Okay, but now in the peptide arena, we're almost bypassing that step. So instead of going through digestion, instead of ingesting it, what we're doing is we're injecting it or doing a nasal spray or something like that. So there are peptides that are specifically designed to improve memory, function, libido. There's a variety of different peptides out there. It is a very hot topic right now, and there are a whole host of different formulations of peptides that are specific to certain areas of the body.
So what are your thoughts? Are you recommending them to patients? Like if I came in and said, hey, I'm really sore after I lift weights. I've heard there's this thing that helps me recover faster. Like, can you recommend that? Can you get me some? Like, what would you tell me?
Sure. We do have peptides here that we can offer for patients. Generally in the form, again, I like to do the injectable forms or nasal spray. And we're using it mostly for cognitive function. We do a brain rehabilitation center. We have a rehab center here, and so we use it for cognitive function. And we also are using it in the place of tissue recovery. So muscle repair, ligament repair, tendon repair. Patients have a damaged or torn even labrum, and they want to try to do as much rehab before looking at surgical route, then we'll be using those type of techniques.
So
that would be injection.
Okay, and you're advocating more in like there's a real acute need versus I'm trying to optimize my workout and recover faster?
Yeah, I mean, in my place of business, I use it in a stepwise way. So if we can be as minimally invasive, ultimately that's our objective. A lot of people are using them like food product. I don't know that I look at them as food product. And typically if you're ingesting something, if you ingest a peptide, what happens to the peptide? Peptide is a medium chain amino acid, right? So it's like groupings of amino acids put together that have specific instructions to the body when introduced to physiology. And so when I consume that, if I consume a peptide, my stomach acid will break the peptide down into amino acid parts. So now I have the amino acids sitting in my stomach and moving into my small intestine to be taken up by the body and utilized in the liver to be made into proteins. Okay. So if you're ingesting, let's say BPC 157, or if you're ingesting a peptide, physiologically, I don't see the benefit from that above taking amino acids.
Okay, are amino acids in like people's like protein drinks or where do
Yes.
Okay.
If you look at the ingredients of your protein drink, if you look at the ingredients of, a lot of the, even sometimes supplements that you're consuming, you'll find amino acids there. Okay. And so if you have a good broad spectrum amino acid supplement that you're taking and you're ingesting it and you compare that to taking a peptide that you might ingest, well, if you're taking that peptide, again, you're just breaking it down. If you're doing it through ingestion, you're just breaking it down into the amino acids. So there's not a whole lot of difference between taking an amino acid versus a peptide. But sometimes right now, especially because it's a hot topic item, you're going to have a surcharge, right? You're going to end up paying more.
I believe that. So are people taking peptide? Then how would I know? I mean, would I just inject peptides where I think I need them?
So yeah, you want to have a doctor recommending this to you for a specific condition. So it might be a tendonitis, it could be a chronic bursitis, it could be some inflammatory issue that you're dealing with, and it just hasn't turned the corner with conservative care, right? With stretching, with continued working out and activity, and you would need it or use it in that instance. It would be injection is what I would recommend in that case, and not ingestion. So,
are they dangerous, peptides?
I haven't seen any data or information that suggests that there is a danger to peptides. However, we say that with a caveat, right? Because just because we give specific instructions doesn't mean that there's not a downstream effect. And so if you take tirzepatide, if you take Ozempic, for instance,
okay.
Yeah, thanks for forgiving me on that one, everyone. If you take Ozempic, for instance, right, we know that there's gastric emptying reduction, right? So it slows gastric emptying. It slows the body's capacity or ability to move stool through it, right? Generally, as a functional medicine doctor who focuses a lot on GI and GI health, I'm trying to encourage gastric motility and mobility, right? I want it to move through efficiently, not speedy, right? Not super fast, but you do want it to move through efficiently so that it doesn't rot and decompose and ferment in the gut and the GI. Well, if you're going to spend a whole lot more time because you're creating sluggishness to the stool, and sluggishness to your digestion, that's going to lend itself to essentially create more opportunity to ferment and to decompose. And you really want it to be moving through efficiently enough for the body to break it down, to pull out the specific nutrients that are needed, and then to move the waste product out. Well, now with the peptide known as Ozempic, right? We know for certain that it's decreasing gastric motility. That is a problem.
And we're learning this because it's so popular. Is it fair to say the peptides are so new that maybe we don't know a lot of the side effects long term? I mean, some of them are approved, right? So it's like
100%. I tend to be a slow adopter, right? That's why and I've said this to a lot of people for a number of years now. People have said, "Oh, hey, are you using peptides? Have you done this? Are you using this BPC 157?" And people have introduced me to peptides over and over again, right? And I'm like, well, I'm watching, I'm evaluating. And if I think that it's going to be beneficial and I don't see any negative impact to it, then I will address it. I will address it. As in, I will implement its use with a patient for a specific condition. Okay, but that's generally going to be because we've already exhausted some of the more conservative approaches first, and we're looking for something that's a little more succinct or aggressive that we can utilize.
Something you said recently is like, when you go to a homeopath or you get a midwife or a chiropractor or a naturopath, you're just making a healthcare choice.
That's right.
You're not changing your religion. You're choosing a less invasive way of healthcare. And I loved that. Can you talk about, why do we choose something that's less invasive, right? But peptide injection is invasive. You're injecting something.
Sure.
But maybe that's the step you get to eventually
100%.
Under the care of your doctor, your healthcare provider. Yeah, what is this whole thing about less invasive? Why does that resonate with you? Because it did with me, and I just needed sometimes the words to get crystallized for me to be like, oh yeah, that's what I believe, less invasive.
Yeah, so it's like, well, let's look at the logical step, right? So the logical step is I don't feel well. Let's say I wake up, I'm not feeling well. It's like, what do? Okay, let's go to the doctor. Like, well, you know what? Let's get surgery. Is that an invasive step or is it a minimally invasive step? Right? Obviously, that's jumping way too far ahead, and that's what people would suggest. That sounds ridiculous. It sounds crazy to do that. Well, no, the logical step is to say, okay, what are minimal things that I can do to begin to implement into my diet, changing the food that I'm eating, maybe even implementing fasting, that is not going to have a significant, like I don't have to cut my body open, I don't have to implement or introduce any synthetic medications or drugs. What can I do in the meantime before I get to those steps? Okay, so that's what ultimately minimally invasive approach means, is that we're going to say, what's the first step? Well, at home, what I would want to say is, well, we're going to adjust our diet. We're going to increase our hydration, our nutrition, our vitamins. We could say, okay, let's take some vitamin C. Let's make sure our vitamin D is up, vitamin B. And so we could look at all of these, our zinc, right? We could make sure that all of our vitamins and minerals and nutrients are up just by taking them. Right? Now, we're not obviously at home, drawing and doing a finger prick or evaluating where our values are instantaneously based on our blood, but we can take those simple measures just to make sure, hey, that our body has at least the opportunity to take those nutrients up because we've consumed them, okay? That's minimally invasive. Now, the next step would be, boy, I'm just not recovering from this. I feel like I should be recovering from this quicker than I am.
Doing all the things that you think you should do. You're hydrating, You're eating healthy, you're trying to get your supplements.
Like, these are the minimally invasive things, right?
You're trying. Like, I've
so
been
what's
there.
The next
I've
step?
been there.
Yeah.
I've tried. And it's like, sometimes you're like, why do I not feel better?
So the next step then is like, some people might even say, because the next step is, some people are very studious. Like, they'll look at herbs and, they'll take an herbal class, or they'll research YouTube University, right? And they'll look at all these different combinations and they'll feel pretty good about, hey, I can take care of myself. I can combine, this herb and this plant or this thing and make a tea. And so, maybe that's the next step, is you get a little creative with or do a little research on what do I have access to currently that I can get access to as a layperson that can maybe step up my personal therapeutic care first. So that's the next step. Okay, it's still minimally invasive. Now, if we're still not going from there, then you need to probably consider somebody who's a professional, right, or has a significant amount of training or has practiced that for a very long time, putting those specific herbals together that have compounds with them, that have active ingredients that are going to basically change your symptoms, your symptomology, and support the organs that are required in order to make those changes. That is essentially where we come in. So now you're going to a doctor, a trained specialist, a homeopath, a naturopath, right? But you're doing it with the specific intention of saying, okay, I've tried my things at home, and now it's time for me to try the minimally invasive things here, right? With a doctor, with a professional, someone that I trust, but I still am not at the point of drugs or surgery. It's 99% of the time you go to that physician and you're going to have amelioration of your condition, and you're going to have better support of your organs, and your body is going to basically be in a position where it was able to overcome, for the most part, whatever condition you were facing on its own. So you have an intelligence within yourself, a fortification that you've built within yourself to be able to withstand any sort of pathogenic invasion in the future. Okay? Now, the next step, let's say that you're not able to do it with that. Let's say you went to the herbalist, right? You're working, you're trying to do those things that he put you on a specific protocol or whatever, and it's still not abating, still not going away. Now you need to say, okay, is this time for me to be looking at some sort of medication to turn the corner, or to give my body a bump or just a little boost that it needs to get me back to homeostasis, so that I can go back to my herbal protocols or my plant and nutrients and nutrition protocols, so that I can support the body overall. And ultimately, that would be the progression.
So if you get to that point with your healthcare provider, and you're like, I'm still having this issue in my wrist or my shoulder or my knee or my back, that's
so if you get to that next one, that would be peptides, right? So even before you go to your drugs or your medication, you would say, well, let's try this peptide, right? If it's something for mood, if it's something for depression, anxiety, you can utilize a peptide, a nasal spray peptide. If it's something
depression,
yes, you can use a nasal spray. Yep. And so if it's more like something tendinitis or inflammation of a muscle, or some sort of injury that you had at the gym and you've been working with it, it's just not improving, then at that point as well, that's when we would look at saying, okay, let's do this injection.
I got to get some peptides. We'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that after the podcast. So I guess, I just want to know, what else is there to talk about? You hear the patients asking about peptides. All the people online, fitness influencers, are talking about it. Again, I just remember this Joe Rogan clip where he's talking to someone. He's like, are you taking peptides? You should, man. You'll recover way faster. I think he's talking to Mark Zuckerberg about it.
Yeah.
And Mark is kind of like you. He's like, I'm not really right now, and Joe's like, you got to try it.
So here's the thing is, again, it's instructions. Think about Ozempic. Think about insulin. Think about some of these other peptides that we've been using for quite a while. We do have pretty good evidence on them, and we do know that there are other things downstream that they cause symptoms, right? They cause other issues. Okay, so just because you're taking a peptide, it doesn't mean that it's all safe. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to have any impact from consuming this. Even if you overconsume certain vitamins, even if you overconsume certain foods, you're going to have a symptom. You're going to have, if you overconsume cherries, you're going to get the runs. You're going to have diarrhea, right? If you overconsume vitamin C, you're going to have symptoms.
Been there, done that.
A side effect.
Yeah.
So to think that we're going to consume or inject peptides, and that there's zero side effect, that there's zero negative downstream effect to that, is just not a logical conclusion. It doesn't make sense that there's no negative impact down the road, especially when we're looking at like, how much am I taking? How frequently am I taking it? How much am I using this, right? Because any product anywhere based on dose, right, is going to at some point cause a physiological disruption in your body. And so you have to be wise with the use of it. Is it likely that if you're using peptides the way that we suggested, that you're going to have an issue with it or a negative downstream effect? I think it's extremely unlikely that you're going to have a negative downstream effect using it the way I described as a minimally invasive approach. Is it likely that you're going to have a negative downstream effect if you're using it like in a daily routine, or you're using it to replace other things and you're just like, this is the greatest thing on earth? It's very likely there's going to be some negative downstream effect that we're going to observe. We just haven't seen it yet.
I like the idea, or it makes sense to me. That's why I like it, because I can, understand it as like something that you put in your body will have effects.
Absolutely.
And there's going to be side effects, because you talk a lot about systems biology, I think, where it's, it's not just the headache. What's causing the headache? Is it the liver? Is it the spleen? Or is it or I don't know. There's a lot going on in the body that most people probably don't realize. And I think we treat symptoms a lot in Western medicine, and maybe not always like the cause.
And we are looking at symptoms a lot, right? And from my perspective, patients often are wanting us to ameliorate symptoms. And when I look at symptoms, I'm looking upstream or to the root, meaning what's causative in this condition, right? What's causing this symptom? And so if we're developing symptoms and we're utilizing peptides at a very significant rate and repeatedly or on a daily basis, then we are going to have to at least consider that as a potential causative factor in a symptom that we're experiencing. Okay? We don't know the answers at this point. That's why I say that I'm a slow adopter. I like to observe. It's fine if people want to take it, if people want to experiment, but you have to realize too that you're literally using your body as an experiment for science. And that's fine if you want to do that, right? But you're taking it at doses that haven't necessarily been totally established. You're taking it with a frequency that sometimes people are coming across these peptides in the form of a multi-level marketing company. And so they're wanting to and encouraging the use and the increased use and the repeated use and the auto shipping use of this over and over again. And it's like, is that really the recommended and the suggested use that's going to be most beneficial for each individual? Again, let's go back to the idea of health is a personalized thing. Is Ozempic right for everybody? No, it's not. Is it right for some people? Yes, it is. And at some point, you do need to consider, okay, what's my long-term game here? When do I get off of this? What do I go to next? Am I properly supporting my body so that I don't always need to be dependent on this substance?
So that's why you're saying work with a healthcare provider on this for guidance.
Absolutely.
It's more than a Google search or a ChatGPT search, ordering some peptides and figure it out on your own. You really recommend guidance with a professional.
100%. And if you look at it, we love in our culture, in our society, it's like, oh my gosh, you can get this magic bean from halfway across the world. And if you take this magic bean and you roast it, and then you do this and then you blanch it, and all of a sudden you have this magic substance, right? And it's like, no, most things are not like magic the way that we sell them. They're marketed as superfoods or this super drink, this elixir from across the world. And we don't realize that the fact of the matter is there are plants, there are nutrients, there are strategies right here in front of us that can help us turn the corner in our health. But it requires longevity. It requires a commitment as well. So it's a long-term strategy that we really should be looking for. Peptides do have the potential to turn the tide for us to, if we had a condition that's not healing as quickly as we'd like it to, absolutely. Is there potential there to speed that healing up or to initiate recovery? Absolutely. And is it a minimally invasive or a less invasive means than some other treatments or modalities? Yeah, it is. It's a lot less invasive than some synthetic chemicals or synthetic drug, right? So instead of putting something in there that's going to cover up the pain, or like cortisone. We did a podcast on that. But instead of putting cortisone in there to just suppress the immune response and suppress the body from producing inflammation, why not put something in there that's going to promote regeneration of tissue? It is a sound structure, or theoretical structure, that suggests the use of peptides. So I'm not saying we shouldn't, right? I'm just saying we need to be wise when we do it.
You've given me many pieces of food for thought here to chew on and digest. I'd like to explore peptides more. I'm intrigued. I might want to try them, but you didn't scare me away, but you made me feel cautious in all the right ways.
There we go.
A song that says, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel if you found value in this.
Absolutely. Hopefully that was good information for people at large, right?
Hey, another episode of the Be Well Now podcast in the books.
Yeah. Amen. Be well now.
Namaste.
Namaste.